Welcome back to Coast Vue. I always enjoy that conversation with Jeff Duncan. We're lucky to have access to him. It's such a dynamic time for both the Pelicans and the Saints. It's great to have an insider like Jeff to really check in with. Hey, listen, I've been talking a lot about this conservation trust fund that was passed in the Mississippi legislature this past legislative session. And there's a group of, we call them the core group, a group of people who've been deeply engaged in this. Frankly, there's a core group, but then there's hundreds of others that hope that this was happening, including legislators and whatever. And I sent them a note the other day, and this is what the note, I just ran across this great quote from Rachel Carso, and it says this: "Those who dwell among the beauties and mysteries of the earth are never alone or weary of life." I love that because it's just a great reminder about how important the natural resources, our ability to enjoy the outdoors all across Mississippi, how important that is and what it does for us. I was reading just a few minutes ago from a book I have. It's Ernest Hemingway on fishing. And he was at this one point, this really funny section where he talks about when he's fishing, his thoughts go in places that you would never want to put into a paper somewhere. And then he says, but it's mostly about the fish. But it is a great opportunity to never be alone or weary of life when you're enjoying the outdoors. And that's why the Conservation Trust Fund was so important. And I sent it to the group, and they all, gave a high five back and said, that's what it's all about. I want to invite my friends Ed Penny from Ducks Unlimited and James Cummins from Wildlife Mississippi into the conversation. And first of all, just say good morning to you. How you doing, guys?
Doing great. Good to be on the show.
Good morning, Ricky. Great to be here again. Thank you.
So I just want to do a little reflection. Now that the session is completely behind us, what we have now is a trust fund. We don't have a dedicated funding source, and that's part of the kind of this, as the Lieutenant Governor explained to me in the fog of the final moments of the legislature, what was supposed to be $20 million turned out to be $10 million. But we're not going to be choosy at this point. We've got a conservation trust fund now. We can stand something up. We've got $10 million to go seek matching funds. The reason we've been so high on this is because the federal matching funds that are available to us are very significant. But we've got something now, James. We've got something to work with, and next year we can refine it. The Lieutenant Governor has said that he's committed to fully funding it next year, and we're moving in the right direction now. That's what's important now, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is a great start. I'm really excited about the authorizing legislation that we have. It sets up a great board. It includes several wins that both Ed and I and you have talked about over the last couple of weeks, and that's private lands and nonprofits. We didn't get as much money as we anticipated. It's not a dedicated source, but hey, I'm proud Mississippi's not last anymore. We've got a great start, and we got a lot to build upon.
Yeah, I don't fully understand the whole 2010 thing, but what I understand is that Lieutenant Governor wanted to use one-time money, $20 million, and then the House wanted to use reoccurring money. And what I would have done, of course, then, in the spirit of negotiation, and I don't want to hammer anyone because, the reality is we landed in a good place. We've got a bill now. We've got a trust fund now. We've got a board to oversee it, and big wins, as you pointed out, on non-governmental and private lands. But if I were in the House, what I would have said is, let's put the $20 million in because it's not reoccurring anyway. We don't have a dedicated funding source. We'll have to come back next year. And here's the reason I'd have done that. I'd have done it because, as we've talked about so many times before, we're leaving somewhere in the vicinity of $40 million on the table every year in federal matching funds. And so if we, having $10 million less means so much less in potential matching funds. So, and it could be more than that, couldn't it, James?
Absolutely, and you're exactly right. And we've been leaving that much on the table, but since the passage of the infrastructure bill, it's a lot more than that. I mean, it's the tune, $500 billion to 50 states. That's $10 billion per state. We've got to figure out how to get that to Mississippi and put it to good use. And I know Ed's thinking of good ideas, the Nature Conservancy's thinking of good ideas, but we're still going to be suffering in terms of match. So
yeah. Hey, that's if we'd have had 20 instead of 10, then we would have been able to stand it up. The thing that was frustrating during the process, and this is, we all stayed very much focused on the fact that we're leaving federal funds on the table, watching all other states in the Southeast except for Louisiana, we're watching them turn 20 million into 100 million and do incredible innovation as it relates to outdoors enjoyment. And Mississippi kept having projects we wanted to do, but we couldn't find the matching funds to pull the project down. And that's been really frustrating, hasn't it?
It has been frustrating, and we know there's so many needs on our public lands and also on private lands across the state. And we are pleased that this program is available across the entire state. And I want to make that real clear to you and your listeners that this isn't just for duck projects. This isn't just for the Mississippi Delta. This is for coastal Mississippi. It's for East Mississippi. It's for Tunica County. It's all over the state that we know projects will come from. And we want to make sure that folks out there understand that this is now going to be available, because we do want to leverage those dollars for things like trails, for things like water access, for things like habitat improvements. All kinds of things can be funded by the program, and we want to make sure that folks understand that. And that's the only way that I think that we will get more funding, is that we demonstrate the success of this program. And believe you me, the program establishment and first year funding is the first step. We're not done yet. We're not walking away from this because we want to get stuff done. We want to show our legislators and our elected officials that they can commit to more funding, because this is popular and that this is doing things in their districts and in their counties.
And James, that's a great point, Ed. And James, one of the things that's so powerful, though, and one of the reasons we felt so strongly about the non-governmental organizations, having them included, is that you guys have the ability to look outside the state of Mississippi and see some of the projects that are happening, see the successes that are happening. And if we just left that up to governmental entities, they might miss something. So the bottom line is we want to have as many stakeholders at the party as we possibly can, so that we can have the best ideas and have it be competitive, and we have to make sure this first year is knocking it out of the park, don't we?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the states around us, like Arkansas. You were talking earlier. I mean, this is the live, work, and play bill. I mean, how can we take our natural resources and make Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play and raise a family? And that's what this is all about.
It's really exciting. And we've had shows about this, but you've literally written the book on the importance of having a total conservation effort. In other words, doing private and public land, and why that's important. But you cannot do a conservation effort, a true conservation effort, unless you look at all land, right?
Absolutely. Like what Ed was talking about earlier, looking at a comprehensive plan, how could, obviously, between the Delta, the hills, and the coast, we've got so much opportunity, public lands, private lands. How can we improve our private lands so runoff going into the Mississippi Sound is better for our seafood industry and produces better quality seafood? So really looking at this holistically, I think, is absolutely the ticket now. And I really appreciate the legislature recognizing that.
Yeah, I thought about things like increasing the amount of right of way, for example, that people would have to make their way to public land, or it could be reef projects along the coast, or any number of other things that we haven't even thought about yet. Because I think what's going to happen is that great ideas are going to start to emanate, and we're going to and what the board is going to be forced to do is have to decide. I mean, what they're going to see, and I think this is one of the things lieutenant governors is at least focused on. That's the good news, is really focused on that we're going to end up with a lot of really good projects that we cannot fully fund. And it's going to create a bit of a compelling case for action for the next legislative session. You see that, don't you, Ed?
I do. And coastal Mississippians travel the entire state. They know that the things that happen in North Mississippi impact the Mississippi Sound, like James said. And, we want to make sure that folks understand, and I say our state legislators in particular, that it's safe to support conservation. It's safe to support the Mississippi Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, because it will benefit their area. And like you said, folks are going to have to make decisions, and leveraging other dollars is so important that we maximize a return on investment from the state government, from the state legislature, and the state budget. And we want to make sure that projects benefit the most people whether it's public or private. There are public benefits that we see on private land through water quality, through habitat for wildlife and fish. All these things are going to be considered, and it will require some decisions, and we want to make sure that it's done in a transparent and defensible way based on sound science. And we have spent a lot of time as a conservation community trying to figure out what works the best. And we know and we hope that those projects will get funded successfully.
There's no doubt about that. We're doing sort of a final, like a debriefing, so to speak, of the legislative session that just ended. And we do have now a conservation trust fund, something we've talked about for the last couple of years here on Coast Vue and on my show, SuperTalk Mississippi, SuperTalk Outdoors. When we come back, we'll continue that part of the conversation. I want to appeal to those senators who voted present. I'll tell you, I'm a little disappointed. I'll explain why when we get on the other side. See you after this. Welcome back to the final segment of Coast Vue. I have Ed Penny, who's the director of policy in the Southern region for Ducks Unlimited, and then my good friend James Cummins, who's literally nationally known for his work in conservation. He's a hell of a writer, and we're lucky to have him here in the state. And he's the executive director for Wildlife Mississippi. Hey, listen, guys, I was mentioning to you, I was a little disappointed with some of the senators who voted present, and at least two of them who were involved in the process. I'm not going to mention names. I'm not trying to call anybody out, but they know who they are, and I'm just appealing to them. Two of them said that the adjustments were made to the committee that's going to be reviewing the projects that the Senate wanted to see. If those adjustments were made, they'd vote for it. And they still voted present, and I was very confused by that. Both of them, both of them, I think, are outdoorsmen. Well, at least one of them sent me a note and said how much of an outdoorsman he is. And then another Coast legislator who voted present, I'd send him a note personally to say I was so disappointed, because on something like conservation in this state, when we're trying to lead, we're trying to maintain our status as the capital of the outdoors in America. When you love the outdoors, in this case he does, and you vote present on a bill like this, you won't be able to say to your kids and your kids' kids that you voted for that you helped establish that. And I'm not trying to pound them about it. I'm just simply saying it passed and it's all behind us now. But what I would say is in the future, get focused on this. This is important to this state. It means tens of millions of dollars over several years, and it means the opportunity for us to maintain our position. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But James, you have anything kind of smoldering on you as it relates to this session?
Well, back on your comment there, I remember, Senator Cochran, spent a lot of time putting together programs that are well funded, good conservation programs. And he always said both conservation and conservative have the same Latin roots, and his job was to figure out how to do both. And I think that's exactly what this legislation is. It's about trying to do both. And, I was disappointed as well at some of the folks that voted present or nay, but maybe we got a little bit better job ahead of us in terms of trying to show them next year why this is very much needed, how it can benefit the coast, how it can benefit hunters, anglers, and as the opening in the show is making Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play.
Right. No, exactly. Add anything kind of, on your mind as it relates to this?
Yeah, I think that we're happy that so many people voted for this bill. The House was almost unanimous, the Senate very, very supportive, and that would not have happened without so many folks around the state talking to their state legislators about why this mattered to them personally. I look forward to this being the floor of support. We're not walking away. We're going to keep talking about this because it means so much to our state's economy. It means so much to our way of life. And it's a safe thing to support. And it shouldn't be controversial when we're talking about outdoor recreation and habitat conservation. DU, I want to see projects going on the ground. I don't really care what the board looks like. Let's get that done and move on so we can get this money spent and get it spent in a fair and transparent way that benefits the state. So I'm ready to rock and roll.
What would you add to that, James?
That's hard to add anything to that. No, I think Ed really summed it up well. Let's get a good board. Let's make sure we're very transparent. Let's put every penny on the ground to make Mississippi a better place. And I think at the end of the day, we want this to be the example of how to go about spending not only Mississippi dollars, but how can we better attract federal dollars and put them on the ground, as Ed said, to the service of everyone in the state.
Well, the proof will be in the pudding. And I do think that oftentimes there's nothing clearer than actually seeing it actually get implemented, seeing the projects that roll out of this. And so, there'll be some substantial work done between now and the next legislative session, and we'll be able to kind of roll into that with, okay, we're not talking about theories anymore, guys. This is what we're able to fund. This is what we're not able to fund. These are the kind of projects we're talking about. And again, I think, Ed, you said it well. I mean, in the House, 2 years ago, 117 to 2. This year, 117 to 4. That's a representation, and again, did really well in the Senate. I don't want to take that away from the Senate, but the fact is, it seems like the kind of bill that should have 100% bipartisan support, and has a lot of bipartisan support, obviously, or would not have passed. But when we talk about outdoor recreation in states, is why One Mississippi, which is incidentally the new state song for Mississippi by Steve Azar. It's why One Mississippi is so important. It's the one time, when we're in the outdoors, that's the one time we can be together. We can set all our political differences aside and do it together. And investing in our outdoors is probably one of the most solid things we can do. So anyway, listen, guys, it's a short session together, but I didn't want to move too much forward without circling back and thanking you two and the core group of people who were involved in this. And I appreciate you being willing to kind of give us one last little whatever. Next time, we're going to be talking about, boots hitting the ground. So I look forward to that.
Thank you, Rick. Always great to see you and hear you.
Same on the show. You do a great job.
Okay, guys. It was terrific. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.